I just want to be more benevolent. And I'm not. I'm kind of I don't want to say asshole, but I'm like, I have asshole potential. I thought everybody liked me. There's been in the past so much animosity. I am here to apologize. I haven't reached out to Christine or Meri yet. My heart isn't soft enough to actually apologize to them yet. The devil gets in your head. You know, like, Father in heaven, I need some help here. Because me, this jackwagon, I'm just an asshole to most people. I never thought I was until I got divorced. I thought everybody liked me. It's an effort to just say, I don't even know what to say, really. I was emotionally in the state of a 12-year-old, I guess, when the breakups happen. And the reason I'm going to Janelle first is simply because there's so much less toxicity. There's so much less for me to forgive. It's easier for me to go ask forgiveness.
There are moments in reality television that make you stop, rewind, and wonder if you actually heard what you think you heard. Moments so stunningly out of touch with reality that they become instant classics of self-delusion. And Kody Brown just delivered one of the biggest whoppers in Sister Wives history, a statement so divorced from reality that it might actually be the key to understanding everything that's gone wrong in this family for the past 2 decades. Picture this: Kody Brown, sitting in his car, embarking on what he's calling his apology tour to reconnect with the family he's systematically destroyed. He's driving to North Carolina, presumably to see Janelle, and he decides this is the perfect moment to share a revelation with the cameras. And what he says is so spectacularly delusional, so magnificently out of touch, that it deserves to be studied in psychology textbooks for generations to come. Kody Brown looked directly into the camera and said, with complete sincerity, that up until the divorces happened, he genuinely believed that everyone liked him, not just tolerated him, not just put up with him because of their religious commitments, actually liked him, thought he was a good guy, enjoyed his company, wanted him around. Let that marinate for a moment. This is a man who has spent nearly 2 decades documenting his own terrible behavior on national television. A man whose cruelty, narcissism, and favoritism have been captured in high definition and broadcast to millions of viewers. A man whose own children have publicly stated they want nothing to do with him, and he genuinely, truly, in his heart of hearts, believed that everyone thought he was great. This isn't just a small misunderstanding or a slightly skewed perception of events. This is a fundamental disconnection from reality so profound that it explains absolutely everything about why this family fell apart. Because if Kody actually believed people liked him while he was treating them the way he did, then he has zero capacity for self-awareness, zero ability to read social cues, and zero understanding of how his behavior affects other people. But here's what makes this confession even more disturbing. It came during his so-called apology tour, a journey he's supposedly making to reconcile with his ex-wives and repair the damage he's caused. And right out of the gate, before he's even arrived at his first destination, he's already revealing that he has no real understanding of what he did wrong or why people are hurt. Because in his mind, everything was fine until those pesky divorces ruined his perfect world where everyone adored him. Season 20 of Sister Wives has been absolutely illuminating when it comes to understanding the twisted psychology of Kody and Robyn Brown. It's like getting a behind-the-scenes tour of a scary funhouse where reality gets warped beyond recognition, and this particular confession might be the scariest exhibit in the whole twisted attraction. So let's wade through this delusion together and unpack exactly why Kody's belief that everyone liked him is so spectacularly wrong. The scene that gave us this golden nugget of delusion was vintage Kody Brown all performance, all self-pity, all completely lacking in genuine self-awareness. He's in his vehicle, presumably traveling to North Carolina to see Janelle as the first stop on his reconciliation tour, and he's treating the camera like his personal confessional, unloading thoughts that reveal far more about his psychology than he probably intends. There's been in the past so much animosity. Kody begins, setting up what he clearly thinks is going to be a profound moment of growth and accountability. I am here to apologize. Noble enough, right? A father and ex-husband recognizing he's caused pain and wanting to make amends. But then he immediately undercuts his own supposed growth by adding a rather significant caveat. I haven't reached out to Christine or Meri yet. He admits, and you can almost hear the justification forming in his mind even as he speaks. My heart isn't soft enough to actually apologize to them yet. Think about what he's actually saying here. He's embarking on an apology tour, but he's only going to apologize to the person he feels deserves it, least or more accurately, the person who makes him feel the least uncomfortable. Christine and Meri, the women who arguably suffered the most from his neglect and cruelty, don't get apologies yet because Kody's heart isn't soft enough. As if apologizing is something you do when you feel like it, when your heart has reached the appropriate level of softness, rather than something you do because you've hurt people and they deserve acknowledgement of that harm. Then comes the really bizarre part, where Kody starts talking to himself or to God or to the camera. It's genuinely unclear. The devil gets in your head, he mutters, seemingly aware on some level that his thoughts might not be entirely healthy or productive. You know, like Father in heaven, I need some help here, because me, this jackwagon, I'm just an asshole to most people. It's almost self-aware, isn't it? For a brief moment, he seems to recognize that maybe, possibly, he hasn't been the greatest guy to the people in his life. But then, like a record scratch in a movie, he completely reverses course. I never thought I was until I got divorced. I thought everybody liked me. There it is, the money quote, the confession that explains everything. Kody Brown, in all his narcissistic glory, genuinely believed that despite years of documented cruelty, manipulation, and favoritism, everyone in his life thought he was a swell guy. Not until the divorces, those external events that had nothing to do with his behavior, in his mind did he even consider the possibility that people might not have enjoyed his company. He continues, fumbling for words in a way that suggests even he knows he's saying something absurd. It's an effort to just say, I don't even know what to say, really. I was emotionally in the state of a 12-year-old, I guess. When the breakups happened, 12 years old. He's comparing his emotional maturity to that of a child just entering puberty. And while that might be the most accurate self-assessment Kody has ever made, it's still staggering to hear him admit it. Because if he was emotionally 12 during the breakups, what does that say about the preceding 2 decades of his behavior? Was he emotionally 10? Emotionally 8? At what point in this man's adult life has he actually functioned with appropriate emotional maturity? And then comes the final piece of his justification for why he's going to Janelle first. The reason I'm going to Janelle first is simply because there's so much less toxicity. There's so much less for me to forgive. It's easier for me to go ask forgiveness. Did you catch that? So much less for him to forgive. Kody is going to apologize to Janelle first, not because she deserves an apology most urgently, not because he hurt her first or worst, but because forgiving her for whatever imagined slights he believes she's committed against him is easier than forgiving Christine or Meri. The apology tour isn't really about acknowledging the harm he's caused. It's about him magnanimously forgiving people for daring to be hurt by his behavior. This entire confessional is a masterclass in narcissistic thinking. Every sentence reveals another layer of self-delusion, another way Kody has convinced himself that he's the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of his own isolation. The sheer level of self-deception required for Kody to genuinely believe everyone liked him is, without exaggeration, breathtaking. It requires a very specific type of selective amnesia, one that conveniently erases nearly 15 years of documented behavior on national television. We're talking about thousands of hours of footage showing Kody being cruel, dismissive, manipulative, and just fundamentally unlikable to the people closest to him. For years, viewers have watched this man's narcissism play out in real time. We've documented his complete lack of self-awareness, his inability to take responsibility, his constant blame-shifting and victim-playing. We've seen Kody and Robyn rewrite history so many times it should be an Olympic sport, but this confession takes their reality distortion to a whole new level. This proves that Kody's disconnection from reality is so much more profound than anyone could have imagined. Think about what he's actually claiming. For nearly 2 decades, Kody presided over a family full of conflict. Screaming matches, tears, broken promises, and visible pain. Wives who clearly weren't happy. Children who increasingly wanted nothing to do with him. And somehow, in his mind, this was all just normal family dynamics where everyone secretly thought he was wonderful. It's like watching someone stand in a burning building and insist everything is fine because they can't feel the heat. To be fair, Kody did have some viewers fooled in the early seasons of Sister Wives. When the show first premiered, he came across as this quirky, unconventional, but fundamentally decent guy trying to make an unusual family structure work. There was charm in his chaos, humor in his juggling of 4 different households. Many viewers gave him the benefit of the doubt, assumed his heart was in the right place even if his execution was imperfect. but that grace period lasted maybe 4 seasons, tops. And it's been many, many years since viewers have seen this man as anything other than the villain of his own story, the primary obstacle standing between his ex-wives and children and any chance at genuine happiness. The transformation from quirky dad to family destroyer has been gradual but undeniable, documented week after week, season after season, for anyone paying attention. So when Cody sits there in his car and seriously says he thought everyone liked him, he's not just revealing his own delusions. He's showing us that he genuinely never noticed the unhappiness around him, never registered the pain he was causing, never picked up on the increasingly obvious signals that his family was falling apart. Or if he did notice, he somehow convinced himself that none of it was real, that everyone was secretly fine with everything until those divorces came out of nowhere and ruined his perfect world. Let's talk about the biggest, the most glaring problem with Cody's fantasy that everyone liked him, the actual documented history of his relationships on this show. For Cody to maintain his belief that he was universally beloved, he would need a very specific type of amnesia, one that only erases memories of him behaving like a complete and utter jerk while preserving all the moments where he imagines himself as the hero. Take Christine, for instance. From the absolute earliest seasons of Sister Wives, it was painfully, excruciatingly obvious how Cody actually felt about her. This is the man who famously admitted on camera during a tell-all special that watching his wife Christine eat nachos actually grossed him out. Let that sink in for a moment. He was so repulsed by his wife's basic act of eating food that he felt compelled to share this incredibly cruel observation with millions of viewers. Now, TLC tried to scrub that moment from television history, probably recognizing how absolutely terrible it made Cody look. But that confession wasn't just some isolated cruel comment. It was a symptom of a much, much larger disease in their relationship. Cody showed more genuine enthusiasm and excitement when he was helping Robyn pick out her wedding dress than he ever displayed for his entire spiritual marriage to Christine. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It wasn't something you had to squint to see. It was blazingly, painfully obvious to everyone watching. And then, of course, there's the knife in the kidneys moment, which happened relatively recently in the show's timeline. That moment of raw, verbal betrayal essentially became the tombstone, marking the death of Christine and Cody's entire relationship. For those who don't remember or haven't seen it, Cody characterized Christine's rejection of his attempts to merely tolerate her as a knife in his kidneys, as if she was the one causing him unbearable pain by refusing to accept the absolute bare minimum of affection and attention. Think about the language Cody used there. A knife in the kidneys. That's the language of someone who believes loyalty flows in only one direction toward him. That's the perspective of someone who thinks his wives should be grateful for whatever crumbs of attention he deigns to throw their way. And any resistance to that arrangement is a personal attack that wounds him deeply. A truly liked person, someone who people actually enjoy being around, doesn't talk about his wife that way, period. Then you have Meri, and oh boy, is her story a masterclass in emotional manipulation and cruelty. Cody himself has openly admitted, on camera, that he strung Meri along for over a decade after their relationship had effectively ended. He told her flat out, in words that couldn't be misunderstood, that he couldn't see them as a married couple anymore. He didn't love her. He didn't want to be with her. The relationship was over in every way that mattered. But here's the truly cruel part. He never gave her the dignity of a clean break. He never formally ended the relationship or released her from their spiritual commitment. Instead, he left her dangling in this horrible emotional purgatory, never quite in the relationship, but never quite out of it either. She was in limbo, holding on to hope that maybe things would change, that maybe he'd come back to her, while he moved on with his life and gave all his attention to Robyn. Mental health professionals who have analyzed Cody's behavior toward Meri have called it exactly what it is, a form of control and emotional abuse. When you keep someone in a state of uncertainty, when you don't give them clear answers about where they stand, you maintain power over them. They can't move on because there's always that thread of possibility keeping them tethered to you. That's not what a liked person does to someone they supposedly care about. That's textbook manipulation, the behavior of someone who values control over kindness. And then there's Janelle, the famously independent queen who always seemed the least emotionally invested in Cody compared to the other wives. But even she wasn't immune to his cruelty, especially toward the end of their relationship. Their fights became genuinely brutal to watch, full of venom and resentment that had clearly been building for years. Everyone remembers that devastating tell the world argument that happened right before the holidays, the fight that really cemented the end of Janelle's relationship with Cody. He didn't just disagree with her or express frustration. He screamed at her with genuine rage. He blamed her for his failed relationships with their sons, as if she had somehow poisoned them against him, rather than his own behavior driving them away. In that now infamous fight, Cody literally yelled at Janelle that the family's dysfunction belonged on her, that she was the source, the cause, the reason everything had fallen apart. He took zero responsibility for his own role in the family's implosion and instead heaped all the blame on the mother of 6 of his children, the woman who had stood by him for decades despite his increasing neglect and favoritism toward Robyn. A genuinely liked person does not scream at the mother of his children that she is the source of all the family's pain and dysfunction. That's not what someone who people enjoy being around does in a moment of conflict. That's what a person who is fundamentally, constitutionally incapable of accepting responsibility for anything does when confronted with the consequences of their own behavior. So, when Cody sits in that car looking genuinely bewildered about why his family imploded, when he expresses confusion about why his wives left and his children don't talk to him anymore, he's ignoring literally thousands of documented moments where he was cruel, dismissive, manipulative, and just flat out unlikable. This isn't a case of a few bad days caught on camera. This is a pattern of behavior spanning nearly 2 decades and captured in exhaustive detail. Cody hasn't just revised history the way people sometimes do when remembering painful events. He's drafted an entirely new work of fiction, a complete fantasy where he's the hero and everyone adores him, to protect an ego so fragile that it cannot handle even a glimpse of the truth. Because here's the fundamental problem with Kody Brown. He can never be the liked guy he imagines himself to be, because he is fundamentally unable to take responsibility for literally anything that goes wrong. In Cody's world, in the universe that exists inside his head, nothing is ever his fault. The family collapsed and fell apart. That wasn't because of his neglect of 3/4 of his family. That wasn't because of his blatant, obvious favoritism toward Robyn and her children. No, according to Cody, it was his wife's jealousy that destroyed everything. Or maybe it was his kids' disrespect, or perhaps the production company and TLC were giving him a bad edit, making him look worse than he actually was. He even tells Robyn, during this supposed apology tour that's meant to repair relationships, that he's not planning to apologize for the reasons his wives have grievances against him. He's only willing to own up to the stuff he personally feels like he did wrong. Think about how insane that is. He's going on an apology tour where he's pre-decided that he'll only apologize for things he agrees are problems, not for the things that actually hurt people. Cody's go-to narrative, the story he tells himself and anyone who will listen, has always been that his wives left him because they couldn't handle his perfect, wonderful, spiritually ordained relationship with Robyn. It's a simple, convenient story that positions him and, more importantly, Robyn, as the victims of everyone else's pettiness and jealousy. Poor Cody and poor Robyn, just trying to have their beautiful marriage while these bitter, jealous women make everything difficult. Meanwhile, Christine, Janelle, and Meri have all said, repeatedly, explicitly, in words that couldn't be clearer, that their primary issue was with Cody himself, not with Robyn. Sure, his favoritism toward Robyn was a symptom of larger problems, and yes, it hurt to watch him give her everything while giving them scraps. But the real disease, the actual core problem, was that Cody abandoned them and their children both emotionally and physically. He stopped being a husband to 3 of his 4 wives. He stopped being a father to most of his children. That's the problem, not jealousy. By constantly hammering this jealousy talking point, by making everything about his wives' supposed inability to handle his relationship with Robyn, Cody sidesteps the actual issue. He refuses to acknowledge that he broke the plural family through his own choices and actions. He was the one who created the hierarchy. He was the one who stopped showing up. He was the one who made it clear through 1,000 small actions and several very large ones that Robyn and her children mattered more than everyone else combined. And this pattern of blame shifting and responsibility dodging doesn't just apply to his relationships with his wives. It extends, sadly and devastatingly, to his children as well. When his sons Gabriel and Garrison dared to challenge his extreme, constantly changing COVID protocols, Cody didn't see it as a normal family disagreement or as young men asserting their independence. He saw it as an act of treason, a betrayal of the highest order. He labeled his own sons disrespectful and used their questioning of his rules as justification to withhold his affection and presence from them. He punished them for not blindly obeying by essentially abandoning them during one of the most difficult periods of their young lives. And even after Garrison's tragic death, Cody hasn't seemed to grasp that his behavior toward his sons contributed to their estrangement. Cody has even said, on camera, in words that are stunning in their cruelty, that his kids don't love him because he doesn't love their mothers. Think about what he's actually saying there. He's admitting that his relationships with his children are conditional, dependent on their mothers staying in his good graces. He's placing all of the blame for estrangement on his children, for having the audacity to react negatively to watching him treat their mothers terribly. It's a stunningly cruel admission wrapped in victim language. He's essentially saying, "It's not my fault my kids don't love me, it's their fault for not being able to separate their feelings about how I treat their mothers from their relationship with me." As if children should just be fine, watching their father neglect and emotionally abuse their mother, as if that shouldn't affect how they see him or want to relate to him. Even when Cody appeared on Special Forces, that extreme competition show that was supposed to break through his defenses and force real self-reflection, the pattern continued. His castmates saw right through him within days. Multiple people on that show described him as the single person in the cast that most people just didn't get along with. So much for being the universally liked guy he imagines himself to be. This is the core of Cody's delusion, the rotten foundation everything else is built on. Being genuinely liked by people requires two things. He seems to be in dangerously short supply of empathy and accountability. You have to be able to understand how your actions affect others, and you have to be willing to own those effects, even when it's uncomfortable. But Cody can't do either of those things. In his mind, he's the hero of his own story, constantly under siege from ungrateful wives and rebellious children who just don't appreciate everything he's done for them. He's never the cause of his own misery, only its most prominent and tragic victim. Everyone else is the problem, never him. If the rewritten history and pathological blame-shifting weren't damning enough evidence against Cody's claim that everyone liked him, his liked guy fantasy completely self-destructs when you examine how he used money and emotional affection as weapons to control his entire family. These are not the actions of a benevolent patriarch that people naturally warm to. These are the calculated moves of a manipulator, someone who understands power dynamics and uses them ruthlessly. Definitely not someone who deserves to be liked. For years, literal years, while Robyn and her children lived in a $1 million mansion that was fully furnished and decorated, Janelle found herself in a very different situation. This is a woman who had worked for decades, contributing faithfully to the family pot, helping to support not just her own children, but the entire plural family structure. And yet, when she wanted to build a home on Coyote Pass, land that she had helped pay for, she found herself practically begging for the funds to make it happen. Think about how degrading that must have been. You've been loyal to this family structure for decades. You've worked hard, contributed financially, supported your husband's choices even when they hurt you. And when you finally want something for yourself and your children, a home on property you helped purchase, you have to beg for permission and funding while watching your husband's favorite wife live in luxury. Cody used the communal finances as leverage, as a tool of control. His financial support was conditional, doled out only to those who were deemed sufficiently loyal, which for years really just meant Robyn. A genuinely good leader, someone people actually like and respect, makes sure his entire family is financially secure and treated fairly. A controller, a manipulator, uses money to reward obedience and punish what he perceives as disloyalty. But even more insidious than the financial manipulation was Cody's weaponization of affection and intimacy. He has openly admitted, on camera, to withholding intimacy from Christine because, in his words, she wasn't being a good sister wife to Robyn. Let that sink in. He took the physical and emotional intimacy that should be a natural part of any marriage and turned it into a reward that Christine had to earn by behaving the way he wanted, specifically by treating his favorite wife perfectly, even as he neglected Christine. He did the exact same thing to Meri, essentially holding their entire relationship hostage, keeping her in that state of uncertain limbo until she capitulated to whatever demands he had. He turned love, the literal foundation of any healthy marriage, into a transactional prize. The message was crystal clear. Behave how I want you to behave. Treat my favorite wife perfectly. Put my needs and Robyn's needs above your own. And then, and only then, will you be worthy of my affection and attention. Think about how psychologically damaging that is. Imagine being in a relationship where your partner's love and affection aren't given freely, but are contingent on your perfect behavior and submission. That's not love, that's control. That's abuse dressed up in religious language and family values. Truly liked people, people who others genuinely enjoy being around, make the people in their lives feel safe, valued, and secure. Cody made his wives feel disposable, like they were constantly auditioning for his approval and affection, knowing that one wrong move might mean being replaced in his affections by someone more compliant. And here's the ultimate proof that Cody was never the liked guy he imagines. 3 grown women. Women who had built their entire adult lives around him and this family structure made the extraordinarily difficult decision to systematically dismantle everything they knew just to get away from him. Christine left first. Walking away from decades of marriage, from a family structure she believed was ordained by God, from a life that was supposed to secure her eternal salvation. That's not a decision anyone makes lightly. Janelle followed, separating from Cody and choosing herself and her children over a relationship that had long since stopped serving anyone but him. And Cody himself effectively ended his marriage to Meri, finally releasing her from the limbo he'd kept her in for over a decade. You don't make those kinds of life-altering decisions that upend your entire world and belief system, because you're annoyed with a guy who's generally likable but has some flaws. You make those decisions to save yourself, to escape a situation that has become psychologically unbearable. These women chose uncertainty, potential judgment from their religious community, financial instability, and starting over in middle age rather than spend one more day in a relationship with Kody Brown. That tells you everything you need to know about whether people actually liked him. So where does all of this leave us? We have a man who genuinely claims he thought he was beloved, universally liked by his wives and children, while his actual documented history over nearly 2 decades is essentially a masterclass in casual cruelty and sometimes aggressively mean behavior. We have a man who paints himself as the victim of circumstances and other people's failings, while steadfastly refusing to take responsibility for anything he's actually done. This is a man who thinks he was fundamentally a good guy, a likable guy, while actively using money and love and affection as tools for control and manipulation. Kody Brown's confession that he thought everyone liked him until the divorces happened isn't just a simple lie or a minor exaggeration. It's the Rosetta Stone to his entire psychology, the key that unlocks understanding of how someone could behave so badly for so long while maintaining an image of himself as the misunderstood hero. Cody has constructed a fortress of delusion around himself that is so thick, so impenetrable, that no amount of truth or reality can get through it. The walls are built from blame shifting, self-pity, selective memory, and an apparently limitless capacity for self-deception. Inside that fortress, he's always the good guy. Inside that fortress, everyone loved him, until external forces ruined everything. Inside that fortress, he bears no responsibility for the destruction of his family. He doesn't just have narcissistic tendencies or potential narcissistic personality disorder. Based on years of documented behavior, he appears to be someone who has been actively demonstrating those traits for well over a decade, all while telling himself he's the hero of his own story and everyone else is just misunderstanding him or being unfair. The real tragedy in all of this isn't just that the family fell apart. Families sometimes do, even when everyone tries their best. The real tragedy is that Cody seems fundamentally incapable of understanding why the family fell apart. He cannot or will not connect his behavior to the consequences of that behavior. He cannot grasp that when you treat people badly for long enough, they eventually leave. No matter how much they loved you initially or how committed they were to making things work. And while we're now watching him embark on this apology tour, making these supposedly humble journeys to reconnect with his ex-wives, we know from much more recent statements by his children and ex-wives, from interviews and social media posts that happened after this apology tour was filmed, that Cody has made no meaningful changes. He hasn't actually built any bridges. He hasn't repaired any relationships. The apology tour was, like so much of what Cody does, more performance than substance. The saddest thing for any truly empathetic person to realize is when another human being might just be a lost cause. When someone is so trapped in their own delusions, so committed to their false narrative, so unable to see themselves clearly, that change becomes essentially impossible. And many observers of sister wives, including mental health professionals who have analyzed his behavior, have reached that conclusion about Kody Brown. He's become less a person to root for or hope will grow, and more a case study in personality disorders, a living example of how narcissism operates in real time, how someone can be surrounded by evidence of their own failures and still see themselves as blameless. He truly is, in the most literal sense possible, the king of self-delusion. The fortress Kody has built around himself protects him from painful truths, but it also ensures he'll spend the rest of his life isolated from most of his children and all of his ex-wives, wondering why everyone abandoned him when he was such a great guy. Inside that fortress, he'll never understand that people didn't leave because of jealousy or disrespect or bad editing. They left because he made it impossible to stay while maintaining any self-respect or emotional well-being. And that might be the saddest part of this entire tragedy. Not that Kody destroyed his family, but that he destroyed it while genuinely believing he was doing everything right, that everyone liked him, that he was the victim rather than the cause of all this pain. What are your thoughts on Kody's stunning confession? Do you believe he genuinely thought everyone liked him? Or is this just another layer of manipulation? Drop your comments below and share your perspective on this latest chapter in the Sister Wives saga. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to Soul Sister Wives for more deep dives into the Brown family dynamics. We're here for every revelation, every delusion, and every moment of this ongoing story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we continue unpacking the psychology behind Sister Wives' most complicated patriarch.